I'll start with you, Dr. Jindal. Welcome to this webinar. You have been a former R&D head at Tata Motors Commercial Vehicle Business Division. And you are now advisor to a major leading client Autocom. Mr. Ramanathan, I turn to you. You have been with WAPCO for a long time and you have acute insight into commercial vehicle technology, and a lot is going on at WAPCO at this moment in time.
Yes.
He is the vice president there. I turn to Jehan. Jehan Kotwal is the CEO of JFK Transport, a company that his father started. And he is taking it to greater heights by concentrating on technological innovations to make the lives of the drivers better, to inculcate more safety into his organization. So he's bringing out an interesting side to it. Have we lost?
No, he has turned off his video.
Okay. Then I turn to Shyam Malar. He's the one I have been interacting with, like Dr. Jindal, for a long time when I was in my earlier organization. And the kind of insights Mr. Malar you provided. He was a former executive vice president at Volvo Eicher Commercial Vehicles, looking after marketing, sales, and aftermarket. So these four panelists welcome on board and are going to bring a lot of insights into connected vehicles technology today. So I would rather start with Mr. Malar. Would you give me an insight, or the audience an insight, into the technology trends that concern connected vehicles as far as commercial vehicles are concerned? Hello, Dr. Malar, can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Dr. Malar, are you? Oh, we seem to have lost him.
I think
sorry, Mr. Malar, are you there? Okay, Dr. Jindal, could I move to you? Could we continue the discussion about the technology trends that concern connected vehicles technology as far as CVs is concerned? Would you give us an insight into that as to where, at what stage they are, and how have they evolved until now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you, first of all, thank you very much, Bhushan, to give me this opportunity to be among this team, very learned people who have been in the commercial vehicle industry for long, from all perspectives, whether it is a user or the systems and component suppliers, and from as an OEM, myself and I think Shyam. So it's really great that you have collected this team to really talk about this very important subject of connected technology in commercial vehicles. So as I was when we were discussing in the as a initial discussion, I think the potential of connected technology for improving the efficiency and the overall improving the efficacy and improving the logistics management, the role of connected technology is very high. In fact, as I was saying, that in this has been realized by almost all, and particularly in Tata Motors, in my role as a head of commercial vehicle engineering, we started working on this since long, at least from 2005. In fact, there was even before that, in my stint in Eicher, we started even there also, when the first telematic devices came as a technology options, which you could put in the vehicles. So coming quickly to where we stand today, according to me, is that yes, it has traversed quite a lot, both in the hardware side also, And I would say even from the way the whole system has been designed to bring in to help actually, I would say, to the operators, to the drivers, to even the customers, or even the end user of the vehicles, or the recipients of the goods, or the people who are booking the goods. So it has really encompassed almost all the stakeholders in this. That's why in, in the beginning, there is some background noise coming somewhere from somewhere.
Please mute the background noise.
Yes, I'm doing that.
Yes, Doctor. Please carry on.
So very quickly, you see the original earlier devices were just like track and trace, where you could just see the vehicles on the map. We have traversed quite a lot of distance from there to a stage where there are more than 40 features which are being provided on the platforms, which are being offered by various OEMs with different modules which can support almost all stakeholders. See, earlier we used to have very single platform, single view, but nowadays you can have customized views for each stakeholder separately, like driver, transporter, or the people who are managing the back office, like people who are on the ERP, the people who are using the services of the transportation. So in a way, the whole journey management, then your efficiency management, the connected with ERP has become one of the, I think, the latest addition to whole this, that you can in fact manage your fleet on a month by month. Overall finance management also can be done. So there is a lot of, I would say, progress. But if you are, and from a hardware side, as I mentioned, gone are those days when you had to add SIMs, buy connection. There are a lot of issues there. But now all devices come with embedded SIMs. So that way, I think there is a huge progress has happened, having monitoring the fuel efficiency, fuel theft monitoring your even DEF levels in your vehicle. So all those, I think, whatever digital technology can bring it on the table has, I think, a lot of has already been done. But if you ask me, there are still a lot of things which are still to come, can be done. Maybe as we progress in discussion on that, maybe I will try to elaborate those. So I would probably open the floor to others guys also.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Jindal. I'll move to Mr. Mala. Mr. Mala, you heard what Dr. Jindal said. I would want you to also bring in your insight of the understanding of connected vehicles technology in CVs. And Dr. Jindal just said that from 2005 or even before that, the work on telematics as a precursor of the connected vehicles technologies began. So how has been the progress? And it's usually that the market has to demand a certain technology, and that gives it a true meaning. So would you chronicle that happening?
Yeah, so Bhushan, I think we need to just take a step back and understand how the CV industry has transformed over a period of, for want of a better milestone, we can talk about how BS3 trucks were, how BS4 trucks were, and how there's a quantum jump in technology when it comes to BS6. So clearly, while it has been regulation driven, I think there are a lot of changes which have happened even otherwise. I would say that this change in technology is not something which the customer had wanted. I think this is something which the OEMs have seen has happened elsewhere in the world, and it could add value to the trucking industry here in India. So I think it's been a very pleasant transformation that has taken place. And just to add on to this is that the infrastructure which we have now in India has also progressed dramatically. The development of the Golden Quadrilateral, the north-south, east-west corridors, and all of that stuff. So which means that it is very important that the technology keeps pace with the infrastructure. And more importantly, one of the other important elements that India is trying to catch up is the logistics cost as a percentage of GDP, which is currently more than about 14-15%. It needs to be brought down to 8-9%. So towards this end, I would imagine that telematics or connected trucks would play a huge role by virtue of its various elements, which we will probably talk about a little later on in terms of uptime, in terms of the various other solutions of trip management and all that which it offers. Right. So I would think that this is something which is going to be very, very important. And one more important point I would like to make, Bhushan, is that we have seen that post GST in particular, we have seen that the transport industry is getting aligned to more and more logistic firms and larger fleet operators coming into the system. Yes. So when these kind of target audience is going to come into the CV industry, the connected trucks and the telematics and the fleet management solutions play a much, much larger role for one. And second is even the users of these trucks, which we now see that the e-commerce is now becoming a very, very rapidly and growing segment. So these kind of customers would demand certain services which only the fleet management services or the telematics through connected trucks can offer. So I think we are in a very, very sweet spot. I think the OEMs are trying hard to position this. I'm sure that Jehan Kotwal would probably be able to value add on that further. But I would imagine it's a step in the right direction. I think we are yet to get the full fruits of that. So I will stop here for the moment.
Yes, thank you. But I would move to Mr. Ramanathan because I want a supplier view of the evolution of this technology. So Mr. Ramanathan, before I move to Jehan and take a perspective of a user, a proper practical user who is managing a fleet, I would want Mr. Ramanathan to give us an insight into how this technology has evolved at the supplier end, how you have collaborated with OEMs to ensure that it blooms and it is useful in a true sense to the audience that it is targeted.
Yeah, thanks, Bhushan. Thanks for giving this opportunity. So on the ZF WAPCO has been working on this end-to-end solution of telematic solutions for last 6 to 7 years, and we have been partnering with 2 of the major leading OEMs in India to offer end-to-end solutions. Firstly, I will put the technology trend in 3 perspectives. Like first, the hardware has come, like Dr. Jindal has put it has come a long way. Initially, it started with a simple track and trace GPS-based solution. Now it has gone to CAN-based solution where it is virtually picking all the intelligence and the CAN data from the vehicle, and it is providing a lot of insights to the fleets and the users. The third is now going ahead, it has also gone into a lot of sensors attached to the device. It is also collecting a lot of insights. Like, for example, you have the fuel sensors, you have the load sensors. All these are attached to this telematic device, and they are also collecting data and providing useful insights. Going ahead, now there is a recent trend, especially after the BS6 in the hardware. The telematic unit is used as a gateway for flashing or changing the software of the engine ECU or other ECUs in the vehicle, because this is the need of the hour, because India went very fast in migrating to Euro 6 from Euro 4. Only 3 years have been given to various OEMs. So there is a lot of, many times the software of the Euro 6 it needs to be upgraded. So the OEMs are using the telematic hardware as a gateway for upgrading the other ECUs in the vehicle. So this is on the hardware side. Hardware is fairly matured and it is in line with any other part of the globe. The Indian OEM's technology is in line with, I would say it is on par with any other part of the world. On the portal side, we started with the minimum track and trace features, geofencing and other features. But now we are providing whole lot of information from the CAN system on the driving pattern of the drivers, like whether he is fuel efficient or he is wasting lot of fuel, or you can give insights on the fuel theft. You can get insights on whether the driver is driving safely the vehicle, whether he is doing lot of harsh braking, harsh acceleration. So if there is a fleet which contains some 100 drivers or something, 100 vehicles, 100 drivers, then who are the 10 drivers who are driving very abnormally, and you can train them using this fleet management data. So this is on the portal. So portal and the feature. Now the third trend is becoming a part of a ecosystem. Like for example, today the biggest challenge is everybody is aware of the telematic usage and the importance, but who will pay for it? So he has to get revenues. The fleets have to get revenues. So he has to be part of the ecosystem. Like for example, today the portal has become the data which we are collecting from the telematic unit has to flow like a fluid to other portals. Like for example, the portal has to be part of a larger ecosystem in which the fleets used to get information about the return load, whether some return load is available somewhere, or he has to be part of a larger bus fleet, or he has to be part of so he has to pick information from the internet and give information to the internet. Or so in future we also expect the tolls to be e-tolls, so the telematic system should be able to communicate fluently with the infrastructure system. So these are all some of the trends. The other trends are like cyber security is one of the, like when more and more these devices are communicating openly with the internet, so cyber security is becoming a major requirement. Then a combination of driver safety and the advanced driver assistance system combined with the telematics is also some of the trends which are coming in the industry.
Interesting. Thank you so much. Jehan, I come to you with a lot of information overload. In fact, all the four experts have spoken. You heard them. You, in a way, are a user of their technologies, and you probably understand them better than me in practical application of these technologies. So, as a young Turk who is running a fleet, how do you look at this? How do you look at the connected vehicles technology trends, and from a fleet or a logistics company perspective?
So, first and foremost, thank you, Bhushan and Motoring Trends for this opportunity. To start off with, so as a user, and thank you all, these wonderful panelists are legends in their own right. I feel like I'm in between superstars here. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts about this topic. The journey that I've had, and my father was a truck driver, and I've seen the business grow. Typically, when we used to have about 10 trucks, we would have 3-4 accidents every year. And I was very, conscious of the fact that I wanted to reduce road accidents, and that was my, core priority for our business. Today, JFK is one of the safest trucking companies. We work with all the blue chip companies in road safety, and we focus heavily on that. So that's kind of my niche. And so most of my work in terms of my conversation with you all will be around that heavy focus area. But the journey so far, when I joined the business about 8-9 years ago, and now we have over 120 vehicles, and we've had one incident in the whole year. So we've predominantly changed the shift of how accidents happen. And one of the big things that have enabled us to do this has been technology. Just to give you an example, with Castrol, one of the things we tried out was a GPS that would talk to the driver in real time and tell him when he would make mistakes. So if he would overspeed, it would talk to him in his local language and say, "Aap overspeed kar rahe ho, slow down, 4 ghante ho gaye, take a break," etc. And that dramatically reduced road accidents, right? We saw that when we would reward the driver for his good driving practices through the telematics data, we saw a tremendous difference in his attitude because now he knew he was being monitored. So I think from where I started, where, I had to literally force my drivers to adopt the GPS because none of them wanted to be tracked. That was a big thing. So initial early adoption was the challenge. And of course, mobile technologies weren't so prevalent. Today on my mobile phone, I can see 24/7, call any driver anywhere across India. So as a fleet owner, I agree with Mr. Shyam that all larger fleet owners are going to come into this business post GST era. Smaller fleet owners are going to get washed off. Typically, what Mr. Ramanathan said about the device getting evolved and an ecosystem being created. Hopefully, at least, I don't know about the older versions of the vehicle, but at least the latest new BS6, we are seeing a great efficiency increase in terms of fuel tracking, monitoring, which is for us, our biggest, cost factor. So I would say the devices today, in my opinion, the ones that we are using and the technology that we're using, we are not 100% there, but we've come a long way. So I would say we are about 80% there, where I can see out of my whole fleet, especially the BS4 and the BS6 ones, we can track how much mileage is being used. Some devices, I think OBD still needs to be evolved in the sense that for maybe smaller trucks, a different kind of device, a larger truck, different kind of device, different OEM, different kind of device. For a Eicher or a Tata or a Leyland, it will be unique to its own manufacturer. And I think that's where maybe just having a standard one device may not be the solution. And that's why there's a slight inaccuracy in data. But that being said, at least if 80% has been reached till now, that's a huge leap. Predominantly FASTag, all these things have been big disruptions. I think the future of logistics is quite bright. At the same time, if people who only focus on technology and the e-commerce companies being one of them, they're going to be the real winners in the long term. Anybody who's not doing connected vehicles for whatever reason is going to be, will die a natural death. So from a user's perspective, we're always to make sure, at least even our foundation, which is using AI to reduce road accidents by truck drivers, the core focus area is how can we help truck drivers take better decisions in their driving. So apart from JFK, this technology that we're building also, the predominant focus is road safety. So happy to share more thoughts as the next questions come by.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Jindal, I'll come back to you on this. From what Jehan said, how have the CV manufacturers gone about developing connected vehicles technology from a simple track and trace device to something that is very mechatronic in nature today, that uses AI, IoT? How have they gone doing it? How has it benefited logistics players in a way where when they buy a BS4 truck, then a BS6 truck, how that change has matched their perception of business in terms of TCO, in terms of managing a fleet as a service to their clients?
Yeah. So I think, as I said earlier, you see, we started working on if we talk about 2005, most of the vehicles were mechanical vehicles with very little sensors on the vehicle. There was no CAN or anything. So in fact, at that time, except for providing a track and trace, that too through that antenna on the vehicle and then that telematic GPS-based device, what best you could do was to give the position of the vehicle on the map. But since BS4 in most of the vehicle, and of course with BS6, where all vehicles are electronic, and then a lot of your data is, in fact, earlier the biggest challenge was that if I want to, let us say, give a fuel level indication in the vehicle, one has to install a specific device which will have, instead of analog device, you have to have a digital device which you can then transmit through that telematic device. So you needed a lot of sensor that already added a cost to what it was already there. In fact, at that time, nobody was even accepting that kind of a cost of telematic device of 3,000-4,000 rupees. They were not accepting that. Over and above that, the cost of the SIM, almost, let us say, and that time I remember the cost of SIM used to be 100,000 rupees per month. That kind of a connectivity charges were there. Of course, nowadays that has also come down substantially. So probably you can do that. So the point is that the technology has helped now with BS6, where huge amount of data is available on CAN. So you can easily channelize, process, divide the data into whatever way you want and put it in front of the right person. For example, what driver need to see. In fact, let me share with you in the early part of this, when there were very few people who were going for this. So we did this research that who would like to see what on the vehicle. As Jehan mentioned, there was a big resistance from drivers. They never wanted to be monitored. In fact, I remember in Prima, in the beginning, when we took out the fuel efficiency data and showed it to the driver, he just gave the keys to the owner. That these are all your key. You take whatever you want. I don't want to drive your truck. That was the kind of a situation. But nowadays, since you have every data on the CAN, you can channelize that, as I said, and then you can always show the data which like a driver would like to see. Like say, Jehan has got 100 vehicles. I'm sure he would have his own workshop where he would be tracking his vehicles. So you can show the data related to your vehicle health to your workshop. Even give advance notifications to him that this vehicle, its service is due, its fitness is due on so and so date, so that you don't miss out on any of these things, which cumulatively adds to providing what, as Jehan mentioned, about the safety of the vehicle. Of course, nowadays, even aggregates have become more reliable. The drain intervals have changed. But yes, if you have to manage your drain intervals at right time, you can use this device. If you have to service at any specific service you need to do, you can plan for it. So that way, I think good thing has happened is that now with this electronics and the CAN connectivity coming in, you can give a lot of data on the portal or on the device, whether it's handheld or it's on the computer, and you can plan these things. So same is for your journey management. Now a lot of data through network connectivity having improved, you can plan your journeys much better than probably earlier you were able to do. Like theft, Ramanathan mentioned about the fuel theft is one of the biggest. Whenever we used to go and meet the drivers or the owners, they were always saying, "Sir, you please do something about my fuel theft," because that was the biggest issue. And now with BS6, you have to monitor whether you have the right amount of DEF fluid in your vehicle. So you have the facility to really monitor that. So I think the technology has really helped. Now, in fact, with 5G technology, even if you are passing through or even with 4G also, you can do that. If you are passing through the areas which are blacked out from the data, you can still log on that data and then repeat it back to you. You can log your lot of history. In fact, you can have the full 1 year's record of your vehicle or even more on your computer, so that you can do the complete productivity analysis of the whole vehicle throughout the year, how it has been utilized. So a lot of, I think, technology has really helped to make this connected technology mature. The hardware technology, and in fact, we in the almost 4 or 5 years, we were talking to Cummins that how we can add prognostics to these things. Proactive management of your vehicles, prognostics, what in your US it is called as connected diagnostic, so that you can continuously monitor the various health parameters of your transmission, your engine, your axles. You can monitor your temperature management in the axle, transmission, engine, oil pressure, oil temperature, all these things you can monitor. And then if there is any deviation from the known trend, you can go into your database to identify that if this kind of a deviation is there, what could be the fault, and then communicate that to the driver or the owner that there is a impending failure or impending issue. So you can do. In US, it is already being done. I remember I have seen that truck in US in Cummins premises. I think it will take some time that it can come in India moment our database matures. But that is what is, I think, we would like to look at in the future, those kind of things to come in. If I may add a little bit more, I think Ramanathan alluded to that. In fact, in Tata Motors, we were pursuing this very aggressively along with WEPCO, that we can bring in at least a couple of things like lane departure warning or the collision mitigation system on the vehicle, so that it adds to the safety to the driver. If he is too much wavering on the lane, you can detect that this guy is not driving well, or maybe he's sleepy. And particularly, as you know, most of the accident in India happens during the night. This we did a survey. We dipped into the data of accidents. We found that a lot of accidents do happen in the night, where it's very difficult to see that there is any truck standing or a vehicle standing, whether it is really moving or it is standing in the night is very difficult. So that is where I think the next step is that once this technology comes in the vehicle, so it will further add to the safety of the vehicle.
Thank you so much. I'll go to Mr. Mala. Mr. Mala, Dr. Jindal spoke about driver resistance in the beginning when this technology came. I mean, drivers being a key part of the CV ecosystem, their resistance. How did you work around that when you went about delivering connected vehicles technology in its nascent stage or in its nascent form to the transporters? How did the transporters accept when you have such amount of resistance where the guy just gives the key over to his owner and walks away, saying that if you're going to put this system on my truck, I'm not going to drive? So overcoming that kind of resistance and getting him to or convincing him to look at the other features progressively in terms of, okay, now at the moment it is track and trace, then it will be driver behavior, then I kind of, or the truck kind of coaches him to attain better fuel efficiency. So, and the incentives that come with it.
No, absolutely. I think the drivers are a very, very crucial element or a cog in the wheel for the trucking industry, and in particular to make the transporters successful. Why? Not only the transporters, but even the OEMs. Because many a time they have an opinion about the vehicle, which probably may not be true. So coming to the point in terms of how did we convince, it's all about kind of educating the drivers, so to speak, in terms of, why it is important for them to take care of the truck in a good way. And of course, it is not only the driver, but we also take the fleet owner or the owner into confidence. We try and encourage the drivers to do this safe driving practices. We try to tell them about why it is important to drive in a sweet spot. And then, of course, once we believe that they are being well trained, then we tell them what is the advantage that it accrues to the fleet owner in terms of better fuel efficiency. So I will just, digress for a moment. In fact, this is something which in VCV we learned from Volvo. Volvo used to run this program called Fuel Watch, in which they used to call all drivers, the best drivers in various regions, to come to a contest. And then the best driver was chosen on how efficiently he drove the truck from a fuel efficiency perspective, and of course the safety related angles. And these regional best drivers were called for a national competition. Of course, this was not only done in India, it originally was done in Sweden and things like that. So even in the national contest, Bhushan, you will be amazed that the difference between the best driver in the national competition and the worst driver in the national competition, for the national competition, this guy has cleared the regional round as the best performer there. So the difference is as high as 20%. So when we took this data point to the fleet owners, they realized why it is important for them to also take care of the drivers. And I think the sensible or the more pragmatic fleet owners have realized that they will incentivize drivers for better fuel efficiency, better turnaround time, accident-free training, driving, and all of this stuff. I think it has worked very, very well. So I think it's a very important thing, and I think Jehan was mentioning almost 50% plus of the cost of running a truck is from the fuel, and if you don't really handle that in a good way, you buy a truck which is worth maybe 50-60 lakhs rupees, and then you're not able to take care of it well because you're not paying the driver well, then everything comes to a naught. So I think it's about a collaborative effort between the OEM, the fleet owner, and of course educating the driver to break these barriers, so that people don't throw the key away and go away. Sure. So I think that collaborative effort is what I think is going to be crucial for the success of this kind of a thing. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes. I'll go back to Dr. Jindal on this, on the fact that fuel efficiency is one factor where a lot of learning has been done by the connected vehicles technology, where you do real-time coaching for drivers. I drove a Prima some days back, a Prima tipper in Pune, and Tata Motors was courteous enough to give me one to drive on the road in actual conditions. We went with it to the site and took some debris in it and took it to another place. It gave a very good insight. Point is, real-time coaching has been one factor where fuel efficiency, where fuel costs today are part of have gone over 60% of the TCO. That's one part of it. How have the OEMs been able to do that, and how have the OEMs benefited from this technology in terms of developing more efficient trucks, safer vehicles, and vehicles that are more reliable? You mentioned about service intervals going up because of a better understanding due to connected vehicles technology. Prognosis, you touched on prognosis also. Mm-hmm. So how have the OEMs benefited?
I think you are right. This technology has benefited even OEMs a lot in terms of convincing about the superiority of fuel consumption. If I just give you an example, so obviously when OEMs are testing on their test track or a known route, one advantage is that with the telematic device, earlier I had to send my one driver and engineer along with the vehicle and then keep monitoring how the vehicle is being driven and all, how where and how much fuel is getting filled. So it helps actually OEMs. Even during the development phase, this technology has really helped to optimize your testing so that you really know that where the truck is being driven, at what RPM, at what load point it is being driven in a particular track on a route, so that you know where to optimize your vehicle. That is number one. And matching your transmission, matching your ratios, it has helped a lot in that part. That is number one. I think the other part is, in fact, before I go to the next part, even during durability trials, you can manage, you can check whether all your aggregates are performing well, whether they are within the parameters which you have really decided for them. So that is one advantage. I think the other advantage was that because you see, it used to happen maybe because of whatever reason. So whenever you give a vehicle to somebody for doing a fuel efficiency trial to a customer, so obviously customer will give it to the driver and then driver will drive the way he wants. It used to be many times, this used to be a backlash to us that we based on our trial, we say this will have this much of a consumption. But the customer says, sorry, you are claiming this, but actually it is not giving. So you go and then talk to the driver, please drive, what are his driving habits and all. So most of it used to be a conversational thing. But after we have now introduced this, I tell you 3-4 years back, when we were running our fleets with the actual customers before even launch, so we could monitor the everything, but how the driver is driving, how his driving pattern is, and then what fuel efficiency he is observing. So we could prove our claim to even the owners that, because most of the time when we were not able to do this, So the owner will say, you are claiming, but my driver doesn't give that. He doesn't agree with your value.
Right.
So where do you find an agreement on this? So that's what when we introduced our telematics, that earlier Fleetman, now it is in Automotive, it is a Fleet Edge solution. So we just connected, gave him also the access that this is the one. This is the actual consumption as per the data. This is what and then wherever what average speed has maintained, where he has driven, how he has driven the vehicle, you could see. So there's no dispute or no discussion about these things. So that way, I think it has not only probably wherever a lot of progressive, say the fleet owner like Jehan, who really appreciate the technology, it was really helpful even to OEMs to really go and convince the customers that yes, this is the way the vehicle is performing and it is conforming to the target. Of course, if it is not performing, obviously there is a homework at the OEMs to do that you make it work the way you are probably thinking that it should behave. So both ways, I think I think Shyam was mentioning that it has helped the OEMs also a lot in terms of improving the products, improving the fine tuning. In fact, a lot of nowadays fine tuning, ensuring that your tolerance bands are very, very narrow. So this is very important in that aspect.
So even preventive maintenance for that matter, right?
Preventive
And warranty and warranty costs.
Gee, again, means this is again, of course, it's a big subject to talk about. But the very fact we ran a lot of fleets with the integral hubs, with the different oil configurations to see that how we can see. I think older people will know that earlier every 25,000 kilometers you had to grease all the hubs. In fact, with a lot of testing and analysis, we found it was a unnecessary exercise which was being done just like a tradition. Even after 100,000 kilometers, that grease is still good. There's no issue. So, in fact, we had reached a target of almost 300,000 kilometers without any greasing. Axle oil change, no oil change up to 150,000 kilometers. Right. Same is almost the transmission oil up to 100,000 kilometers, 100,000 kilometers, no change. So, in fact, the world is moving towards that. For the life, there is no change in fluids. That's the kind of a targets which is being set. So, this technology monitoring, usage condition monitoring on a continuous basis can really help the technology to improve. I think this has helped a lot.
Interesting. Dr. Jindal, I think somewhere you hinted at environmental protection also. I mean, when you are not having a lot of fluids going into the earth and chemicals draining into earth with this all oil change, with every oil change, with every greasing operation, I think there is environmental protection. There's a lot of other things attached to it also in terms of safety and health and well-being.
Actually, just if I may add to what I said, you are right that this was our target for all BS6 vehicles, that the oil drain intervals, the grease changes or whatever, minimum lubrication requirement or no lubrication requirement, like propeller shaft packed for life, no change, no lubrication required. So that is the actually trend, and if we have to really achieve that, obviously component technology is an enabler, but they are this kind of things also. One more thing I want to add, what I wanted to add was, today we are of course IC engine driven, mostly commercial vehicles are like that. But when the EV, let's say we are progressing towards making them electric, I think then the data available for analysis, data available for even doing fine tuning will go, I think, multifold. I remember on our buses, we were collecting data. 1 day's data was running into trillion bytes, 1 TB data. So it needs a big challenge. So that's where I think the technology like analytics really comes into picture, which can help in terms of, again, how to optimize your operations in terms of consuming the energy within the vehicle? How do you optimize your operational points? How do you use that data for, again, improving your logistics or the operational efficiency? So I think it will go, I think it will explode. Then nothing can help except the technology of this connected technology, where you can download that data. I tell you, only this much device. Even physically, if you see, there is a device dongle which is only this much size, which can get your 1 TB data every day from the day.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Dr. Jindal. It was very insightful. I'll go to Mr. Ramanathan. As a supplier who's been working perhaps secretly on various technologies, because when I spoke to Mr. Esculer, your global head a few years back at the Tata T1 Racing Championship event on that racetrack, he had given me a hint that they are working with Tata for a lane assist technology as part of the suite for connected vehicles technology. I want to get you started on that. How have you, as a supplier, helped OEMs evolve this technology, get it better in terms of safety? You touched upon cyber security. In terms of cyber security, how have you made it evolve from a point of view where you, I understand, are also looking at technology like blockchain, which could completely change the whole perception about how businesses are conducted? That may be a transportation business, or that may be an OEM trying to sell its vehicle and associated services to the buyer. How do you sum it all up? I mean, put it all together.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for asking this question. So we normally have a technology roadmap with each of the OEM, in which we jointly discuss with and we put up dedicated technology shows with each. We demonstrate a whole gamut of technology, what global as well as local technologies, and we have a technology roadmap. So with the different OEMs like Tata, we had worked on various technologies, and which are like Dr. Jindal told, the lane departure warning system, the collision mitigation system, and these technologies have been are in the process of various levels of introduction. And when we work with the technology, we have a process in which we do extensive joint validation on the roads, and these technologies are extensively validated on Indian conditions, and like for example, some of the technologies we have done more than 300,000 kilometers on Indian road, captured the data, calibrated the technology for adapting to the Indian conditions. That's how we the technology per se from global we cannot apply in India. It has to be suited to Indian traffic conditions and India. So that's how we introduce any technology, because in the area of ADAS, more than the technology per se, the technology has a lot of benefits. Like for example, Dr. Jindal told, that most of the accidents happen in the early morning hours or midnight hours. So the radars can capture in a foggy condition also. Even if the driver is not alert, it can alert the driver, and in some cases it can brake by itself and prevent the accidents. So these in these cases, the false incidents should also not happen. Like somewhere the alert should not happen, but it is happening, then it becomes an irritation to the driver. Then those are all the things we take care during the validation. What are all the use cases, and whether it is intended function is happening or something. Then on the cyber security, we have different levels of cyber security for different category of devices. Like for example, nowadays we are also following the European norms on functional safety requirements. There is a functional safety standards are there in Europe. So these in wherever it is applicable. So we are also jointly implementing the same with the different OEMs. And coming to the telematics, we have also developed a lot of features jointly with support of the OEMs, and with the security incorporated in this, we have been working on these features.
Interesting, Dr. Ramanathan. I'm going to Jehan now. Jehan, as a user, as a practical user, as a buyer of this technology, transporters are known to be very practical. They will spend only when it is necessary. That's been the image. I'm sure it's changing with people like you coming into this field who understand technology better. How do you look at it? I mean, as a transporter, if I were to invest in telematics or I were to invest in connected vehicles technology that a manufacturer is selling to me under the guise that, okay, it'll improve my safety, it'll improve my driver behavior, improve my TCO, improve the amount of money that I take home at the end of the year. How do you look at it? Is it really benefiting as to what the claims are, or there is a difference? Which way is it all going for you?
So I agree with some of the topics in terms of how it's evolved and what's the benefits to the truckers. Just to share, Dr. Jindal, is what you were saying. It was 3 years ago. If I showed the mileage, this is the mileage to my truck driver. Even today, he'll still give me the keys and say, "You drive." So it's not changed. Okay. And I think for that to change, it will take still a few years. You see, the transportation, the drivers and the transporters themselves, our industry hasn't evolved to that degree. There's still, like I would say, 95% of the transporters had to forcefully put the GPS because it became a mandatory part of from the road ministry. And that's also been a formality. And at max, they're currently only tracking the vehicles. And that too, they don't know what the user ID password is. They have no idea what exactly tracking is. So this niche of maybe the 5% of India where the fleet owners with over 100 vehicles are so-called going to be the next future gen of this industry. I think fundamentally they face this challenge still. It's not getting solved anytime soon. Even if I tell my driver, here's an extra 35,000, 40,000, whatever salary, but don't take money from diesel, they will still prefer not to do that. It's like this mental thing that it's conditioning. So I think technology has its play, but then actually on the ground, the driver is, I've so many times, like even the BS6 vehicles I bought from the Tata, this as well for our latest vertical. It's the logic with which, and you can't explain it all the time. So as your fleet grows larger and larger, it's just, there's a standard that, okay, 3518 vehicle mileage will be this. If you're a 40-18, your mileage will be this. And so I think fundamentally that's one big resistance that we're seeing. I personally believe that the future is, electric and LNG predominantly. I'm hoping that those come in fast so that there is a big shift from this fuel pilferage system, it's a disease, a cancer, you can't get it out of our system. As far as, the OEMs being benefited, I think, Bhushan, you were asking, this is the golden era for OEMs, because if you think about it, 5 years ago, I could service my truck anywhere outside at any dukan, any garage shop, and it probably 1/10 the cost. Today, I don't have a choice. I have to go to the showroom and make sure that it's serviced there. And that bill will be 10x of what it used to be. So any trucker worth his salt will not go for a truck without an AMC today. And any of the young truckers that enter our field, I always tell them, no matter what you do, if you're buying a truck, buy it with an AMC, and that too with the full platinum grade and everything, because there's no option to this, right? So, I mean, it's benefited the OEMs and it will continue to benefit the OEMs to a very large degree. For the truckers, unfortunately, to a certain degree, they can show it to their customers, but the customers aren't paying an extra value for this service, right? Everybody is like, okay, tracking, I'm only interested in where my material is at max, that too when it's a problem. So if, let's say, it was supposed to reach in 5 days, it's become 8 days, it's not yet reached, and hence it's an issue. But mostly customers are only concerned about cost and any kind of additional features. So for example, let me share with you what we did with sleep detection, right? We put devices that the moment your eyes shut for more than 3 seconds, it buzzes an alert. This is super important as a safety feature and should be made in every truck available. It was not welcomed much. The customers were like, okay, this, that's your thing, it's your interest. Why should we pay for it, or why should this be a part of our thing? And so if you even put a device worth 20,000 rupees and then a monthly cost of X, which is the big challenge in our industry, because we keep plugging in these devices which have a fixed and variable cost. What I would rather hope that OEMs come up with is like a standardized fixed thing, all inbuilt, and there's no cost cutting here and there. So I think the fundamental challenge for India is going to be not so much for the BS6 and next generation vehicles. I think the road accidents especially, and the kind of, that space, that ecosystem is plagued with an old set of vehicles, which is over 15-year-old, over 10-year-old vehicles, which are just horrible. They shouldn't be. I think personally 15 years is too much. I think in 10 years, at least the last 10-year vehicles should have been scrapped like in the next 6 months. So unfortunately, for whatever policy purposes, it's not happening. But fundamentally, if that happens, there'll be a really clean set of all these new generation trucks. There'll be a good, freight rates will increase automatically because the trucks that were free will now, obviously have to be scrapped, etc. And I personally think then maybe when a trucker, for example, let's say out of his 100 vehicles, if 50 of his vehicles are over 10 years old, right? He's not going to really see the impact of the new generation trucks and technologies in the next 50, because he's still going to go as per his old standards. But now imagine if 80% of his fleet or 90% of his fleet are new generation trucks, then he'll be more interested for making sure that I have some change in my process, procedures, driver behavior. What we use, GPS and connected technologies is for majorly to improve driver driving behavior. So that's where my company's focus is, and predominantly we put in a lot of time and energy into that. We incentivize drivers. We've built a mobile application, which is what Humsafar is all about, where we basically guide drivers to drive correctly and then reward them for that behavior in real time. So that's essentially what I realized is where the gap lies, because India, we have these BS6 vehicles that will have this technology, but you still have 8 or plus million trucks that don't have anything, and they're not going to invest in these technologies. They can't, even if they wanted to. You can put a WAPCO system where there are no sensors in the first place. You can't put a device of Tata Motors where there's nothing for it to be connected to. So I think fundamentally for us as a trucking industry, the challenge is what do we do with the old set of vehicles? And not so much what's going to happen with the new, because the new is going to keep evolving. It's still not 100% there. Like I said, the devices aren't 100% compatible. There's still errors. And for us, even a 5% difference, right? If let's say a OBD device gives me a 5% change in my fuel mileage, that's huge. Because if I'm talking Bombay to Delhi or Chennai, for me, that 5% is worth thousands of rupees per trip. So it goes in lakhs of rupees per truck. And so I can't even have more than 1% difference in measurement, which to a certain degree hasn't yet reached there. And of course, drivers will not ever accept it. So that plague is never going to end soon. But hopefully,
I want you to look at the other side of it.
Yeah.
Has connected vehicles technology helped you get reliable trucks to run? Have the way Dr. Jindal was saying about service intervals going up. The AMC part, you are right. Because there's so much of electronics coming on board, it is better you send them to the dealer for a proper diagnostics and servicing. But has that again helped you? The longer service intervals have helped you with the costs, keeping costs under control, and despite the fuel prices going up, has it kind of balanced itself in your business speak?
No, so we earlier had bought a lot of Bharat Benz where we saw this difference in maintenance time lapse. And that was a very big benefit for sure, because for us, the biggest thing is turnaround time. The more we're on the roll, more the chakka chal raha hai in Hindi, as we say, the better for our business. So anything that reduces maintenance is good, perfect for us. Fundamentally, as far as it's not such a large degree. In the last year, we've seen an increase in fuel rates of over 40%. So there's no way that maintenance ka little bit 2 days saving is going to result in equating that balance. So we've all been hit very, very badly, and the industry is crippled to a very large degree today. But if you put the diesel thing aside, as far as the vehicle technology is concerned, as far as the servicing is concerned, I'm hoping for a day where the driver is of course assisted, and at the same time in real time corrected, at the same time maintenance been preempted. It's said that a lot of OEMs are doing that, but on ground it's not yet happening. We don't see that, as far as even with a device, with everything, it's not really at the moment presently there. You can do experiments probably happening, but on the ground, fleet owners, I don't know if more than even 0.5 fleet owners are actually following that device to give us maintenance schedule information and then accordingly reacting to that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Jindal. I'm not too sure.
You see, the system is capable of giving you. One is that there is a scheduled maintenance which once you probably log in your vehicle, it will give it to you. You are right that we have not yet come to the stage there what we call as the change interval based on the need-based change intervals rather than the time-based change intervals. Because if somebody's duty cycle is, let's say, not as severe as it is designed for, so obviously he can extend his drain intervals. So that state is not yet come, to be very clear. Yes, very honest. That state will come little bit longer, where we mature various sensors like oil monitoring, oil quality sensor. We have been, in my own engineering, right when we were out of the college, people were talking about oil quality sensors. But if you ask me, till today, we don't have a good oil quality sensor. There are sensors are there, whether they will give you that tolerance band which you are looking at, no. So yes, there are certain challenges, but what I was primarily saying is that once, many times you see, we always face this problem that if the oil change interval was X, but it didn't happen, it continued because somebody forgot to see that, do that or not. So we can definitely prevent those kind of things, so that your uptime or your because once you schedule or plan your maintenance day, you can do everything whatever you had planned to do, so that you are not coming frequently back to this. In fact, let me tell you, I think same must be true with Volvo, Eicher or Daimler or anybody. So in fact, our own teams, marketing teams and service teams were driving R&D that you minimize the need for the truck to come to the workshop. We had almost come to a stage that within a year only once he had to come, with all these oil change intervals of the axle, the transmission, no greasing required, almost that had come to this. And I think that's the second thing which you mentioned, because of all these monitoring of various aggregates, we were able to, in fact, obviously, when you want to buy AMC, you would like to try to drive out the cost of AMC as low as possible. So because of that, I know in Tata Motors, we were able to...
Thank you, Dr. Jindal. I would want to...
Hello?
Yeah, please, proceed. Dr. Jindal, proceed.
So what I was saying is that within our own, in the development in R&D, so we were trying to drive that how can you reduce your AMC cost? So that, and this was the result, all these extended drain intervals were the result of that. How I can minimize my failures. In fact, we at one point of time, we did analyze all our data of last 10 years, various failures has happened based on the duty cycle. Some vehicle runs perfectly well between Bombay, Pune or Bombay, Bangalore highway or Pune, Bangalore. But when it goes to northeast, the performance is totally different because the duty cycle is different. Earlier, we never used to make vehicles depending upon the location or geography. But with the data getting collected, you can in fact tailor-made your certain aggregates for that particular region. This is what we had started doing. And that can go a long way in you see, minimizing those failures and minimizing those downtimes and keeping uptime. See, ultimately, all as Jayan mentioned, every truck owner wants his vehicle to be rolling continuously because that is what earns him money. Kilometers, rupees earned is directly proportional to the kilometers run. So obviously the whole target is that how can you minimize your downtime, minimize your service time, minimize your failure so that the vehicle doesn't have to come to the workshop. That is the target.
Thank you, Dr. Jindal.
Many times dealers don't like it, but that's what the fact is.
Yes. Dr. Jindal, thank you so much. I would want to go to Mr. Malar. From what Jehan said and from what Dr. Jindal said, I would want you to bring you on to the factor of safety. How connected vehicles have helped improve safety or are helping improve safety? Because we are all, I think, aware that safety as a factor is never given the importance that it is given in other markets like US and Europe. Where we are ahead on emissions, we are lagging in safety as far as CVs is concerned. So, how do you connect this technology with the safety factor? The second question I would want to join is the disruption. The COVID disruption has ensured that a lot of things have changed in how a transporter has been operating, how an OEM has been operating, how they've been communicating with each other, how the end user has been communicating with them. So how do you look at this becoming digitalized? Two questions, safety and digitalization from a perspective of connected vehicles technology.
Yeah. Bhushan, before let me just take about 30 seconds and before I come to answering your two questions. This is about the uptime. Now, here I want to share the fact that in VCV, we had modeled based on what Volvo Trucks North America does, which is basically an uptime center which they run in a place called Greensboro in North Carolina, where they support trucks of both Volvo brand as well as Mack trucks. And this typically is a control center where you have a set of people who are connected all the time, and the vehicles are getting monitored from this control center. So the same thing was replicated by VCV about a couple of years back. And I'm very happy to say that we are supporting almost, at that point in time, I'm talking about a year or so ago, nearly about 7,000 odd Pro 6,000 vehicles, which is where we had initially put in the iShare Live, which is the connected vehicle technology. So what this does, and I think Mr. Ramanathan mentioned, today you don't need to bring a truck for doing a software update to the workshop. You can do it over the air. It's called OTA. So you do it on the air, and therefore, the basic thing is by doing this through over the air, you are trying to increase the uptime of the vehicle, which means that more running time of the vehicle. In fact, that today is going to be the largest contributor to vehicle profitability, even relative. I would say that the fuel savings would probably be number two. So the more you are able to run revenue kilometers, the more profits that you're able to do. So this is something which we are doing very, very well. It's not just that this uptime center does this, it also sends service reminders, dynamic service reminders for customers. The third is to monitor the fault code. So if there is a potential likely failure on the truck, there's an alert which goes from the uptime center to the driver as well as to the owner of the truck, saying that either he needs to pull the truck aside or he needs to bring it to the nearest workshop, and then the workshop is alerted that they need to keep the parts ready. So this is how it is. And then the next step, I think Dr. Jindal mentioned this, the next, which is the ultimate thing, which is as far as connected trucks are concerned, is which is called as predictive diagnostics, which means based on a large database or the universe of fault codes that we have assimilated in the database, you can actually make out when the part is going to fail in a truck at a point in time X. So by doing this predictive diagnostics, you're able to prevent the failure, a catastrophic failure, and pull the vehicle into the workshop. So these are things which I think are just round the corner. And I think just Jehan mentioned, I think he has every right to feel skeptical about the fact that things are not happening. But I would imagine that it's round the corner, and I think it is going to be extremely crucial, because we are buying a truck which is 50, 60 lakhs. It better be on the road 90% of the time. So it is not that the service intervals are the only things which are going to be determining the number of trips to the workshop, but it is also the likely failures which happen. So let me come to the two questions that you asked. One is on the safety part. Now the trucks have literally become extremely safe as far as the technology is concerned, the ergonomics is concerned, and of course there are certain devices, as what mentioned, which he adds on to ensure that the driver drowsiness is detected, and you don't get into an accident and stuff like that. But I think today the functionalities of the trace system which is there through the CAN bus is able to monitor as to whether the driver is driving at a right speed. Does he do harsh braking? Is he doing idling the vehicle too often and stuff like that? So this is one of the things that will help in terms of nudging the driver that he needs to correct his driving behavior, which could lead into problems for the vehicle or problems for himself. So safety is a very important element. In fact, I think there are some manufacturers who even monitor as to whether the seat belt is worn by the driver when he's driving the truck. So this is yet another safety feature that the connected vehicle can ensure, so to speak. And then one more important element linked to the safety is that by looking at the driver behavior and his logs, in fact, the insurance companies look at these logs, and then they determine the insurance for the truck based on how safe the vehicle is being driven by that particular driver, or how that vehicle is being driven. Of course, it's very difficult to say that whether one driver is married to one vehicle. That's a different point, but that's going to be an important element. Now, coming to the second point, what is post-COVID done in terms of digitalization? I think it is a huge, benefit for the connected trucks, because more and more reason for either OEM or for the dealer to get in touch with the customer is on the digital mode. And today the connected, the telematics or the fleet management system allows you to communicate to both the driver as well as your dealers. For instance, if you think that from the uptime center you're able to locate there is likely going to be a problem on the truck, all you have to do is that the uptime center guy calls up the driver, the workshop, the technician in the workshop, and asks the vehicle to get the workshop to get prepared for the particular repairs. So I would think going forward, there is going to be lesser and lesser physical interface or intervention that is required, and it's going to be more and more on the technology of on the GPS, on the mobile, and that kind of stuff. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you so much. I would want to go to Mr. Ramanathan. Could you give us an insight into the digital part of this technology that is coming up? At what position or level are we in India at this moment when it comes to commercial vehicles? Mr. Mala spoke about insurance costs being modulated as per the data acquired from connected technology as to how the driver is driven the vehicle, or what kind of insurance liability does a certain truck or a bus have, depending on the data that has been that has been harvested from that vehicle. So where are we, and how far have we come, on how far have we to go?
Typically a truck carries more than 10 electronic control units. In Europe and all, it carries almost 16 ECUs. All these ECUs are throwing a lot of data, and all these data, the important data, you can collect it through the connectivity unit, and then put in a lot of analytics into this, and then it can throw a lot of insights into like Mr. Shyam talked about Aisha Live operating an uptime center. It provides both proactive maintenance as well as a quick response to the breakdown maintenance, and also predictive maintenance on it. You can predict a clutch life or brake life through this data. And when the fuel theft is happening, you can predict all these things can be done. Coming to the other digital data, we also going ahead in the technology now. Electronic stability control is becoming mandatory from 2023. The electronic stability control can throw a lot of data on how the abnormal situations on the road, like for example, the ESC starts acting in case of an abnormal bend or something. Then the next driver who goes through that bend, he gets an alert if these both of them are connected vehicles. So that is another advantage of that. Then the connectivity device, when it is connected with a camera and all, the camera is equipped with a HD map. Then the next passing vehicle can throw the maps to it can pass on the maps to the traffic situation to the next driver. So there are endless possibilities for using this digital data onto this, and many are also, like for example, some of the fleets are using the tire pressure monitoring system and the connectivity system together. And so there are many possibilities to use this digitalization of the data. The data is all, and all this data can be intelligently used to improve the uptime as well as bring additional sources of revenues for the fleets.
Right. My question, my rejoining question is, how far have we come in India in terms of this technology inclusion, and where do we stand at this moment in time? You could probably say it in terms of the automation level, but I think are we at level 1 or even less than that today?
Many of them, like the level 1 technologies, are already discussed as the auto. Like VDA talks about different 5 levels of autonomous driving.
True.
Where the level 1 we are already discussing. It is in the draft stage for autonomous emergency braking, like what Dr. Jindal talked about collision mitigation system and all. There are some companies who are also like we did a project with Tata Motors on the active steering, where it is you are automating the steering. So when you are combining the steering automation with a camera, then you can actually automatically keep the lane, like lane keeping assistance, what we call. Instead of a simple warning, the system can correct itself. And so those are also already demonstrated with some of the OEMs, and in some specific use cases, the OEMs are planning to introduce. So many of them are in level 1 or level 2. There are some niche areas where we are jointly working with OEMs on the autonomous for like level 4 or level 3 or level 4 autonomous driving. Like for example, one of the use cases we are working with one of the OEM is a dump truck or something which is unloading a lot of the waste into and there automatically the dump truck will they'll drop the waste at a particular location, and automatically it will come to so the technology wise readiness is there from the OEMs, but we have to create a revenue use case and justifiable use case to implement these technologies.
Thank you so much. Dr. Jindal, I'm coming back to you on this. From what Mr. Ramanathan said, he says we are at level 1 and 2, and there's some workability at level 3 and 4 of autonomy. India has been a different market. We have got different driving characteristics and congested roads that are probably not as well planned as in Europe or US. We're getting there. Infrastructure is going up, as Mr. Mallar said. Point is, where do we bring a use case benefit to the transporter in such a scenario? The application of technology practically, I mean, if a lane assist technology doesn't work on a congested stretch of a highway in India, and there is an accident, how do we justify a technology like that? How do we justify a level 1 or 2 of autonomy? Where do you see all this going in India?
Yes, yes. You see, one thing is, as the safety being one of the prime concern as of now, because India, I think maybe along with China, it has the highest number of road fatalities in the world.
True.
Yes. India probably, even I think in last few years, India probably, leave aside the COVID period, India probably had even exceeded the China. So China has worked a lot in their infrastructure and even the vehicle technology, and they have gone, I think, means at a very big speed and improved their whole logistics in their country. I think there is a both push and pull is required in both the cases. Safety, we have to talk about safety. In fact, our main aim in Tata Motors to go for applicating this even ESC we did before even there was a regulation. Even if there was a talk about regulation, we did demonstrate, and as Ramanathan was saying, we ran a fleet of 5 trucks, or even in fact later on the numbers were also increased on the Indian roads for more than 50,000 kilometers, 20 trucks, and then 5 trucks, even more than 100,000 kilometers, just to ensure that whatever things which we have put, like for the lane departure warning, the collision mitigation, we do see the where the system intervened to apply or at least do a warning, and then in the worst case scenario, even apply the brakes. So the point which I am trying to drive home is that, you see, if we will leave it to happen, I think as Jehan was mentioning, if you leave it to the buyer to demand it, they will never demand it, because the customer, the vehicle owners or the fleet owners are already high stretched for their finances or their efficiency or the cost. The drive is always to minimize the cost. So ultimately, it has to come through a regulatory push. In fact, we were ready with the introduction of CMS as well as lane departure warning almost 4 years away, 5 years back. Correct me, Ramanathan, if I am wrong. We were ready almost 4 or 5 years back.
Yes, yes.
We jointly did this work with WAPCO at that time. So, but obviously the cost is a big hindrance. In fact, we did a lot of calculation in-house, how much cost we can absorb, how can we introduce in the market at least a pilot fleet of 100, 200, 300 like that. So unless, what I believe is that unless there will be a regulatory push, it is not going to come. Nobody will be, we will have engineering releases done, but nobody will buy those trucks. So that is very important. So one is that this regulatory push has to be there towards the safety. So in that, I think, in fact, as you mentioned, we had a lot of discussion with Jack Esculier that Europe, in fact, I saw one broadcasted US Congress, they have usually meetings where people have gone and shown the data that moment you introduce the CMS, that is collision mitigation system, there is a very clear trend of drop in the collisions, nighttime collisions or the collision with the stationary vehicles. There is a clear trend. So this was done in case of seat belts. I think the same thing has to be done for trucks. So there has to be a regulatory push which has to be done. Of course, the OEMs will also have to be more proactive. So I give you a very small example. As you know, the seat belt, I think Shyam was mentioning about seat belt. We did a survey, though the seat belts were introduced through regulation, but the people actually wearing seat belts were almost nil. Then, and of course, usually to do the keep the cost minimum, people were all giving lap belts, lap and then 3-point belts with no ELR. We drove this inside Tata Motors that we will forcefully, we will give ELR belts in all our vehicles. with that, at least people will have, because they will be nicely fitting, no loose belts roaming around here and there. So they will be nicely fitting on the seats. So we forced to introduce the ELR with marketing, and many people were not very happy, to be honest, because there is a cost. But we forced it. And the next step is also now Tata Motor is working on introducing the 3-point seat belt on the seat rather than on the pillar. So that is also not a very good comfortable situation. So like that, yes, I agree that OEMs also have to drive the safety to the hilt. As mentioned, regulations have really helped. This ECR 29, which is Indian regulation, AIS 29, then seat belts, then the seat belt anchorages. This whole lot of things have improved the safety. Even by truck code is now getting implemented, with which a lot of safety features are incorporated, which are must as per truck body code, truck code.
Right.
So I think these are all things will really add up to the safety. It has to be a movement. Of course, since your subject is digital, obvious digital things will really happen. Facilitate all these things, these technologies to improve the safety. I fully agree. The safety is the next, I think, target. Of course, emission is probably we are now there almost at par with the Europe. Now the next target is that we need to be at par with Europe in terms of safety standards also.
Yes. Dr. Jindal, I want to come with the next question, and that is about would electric vehicles make connected vehicles technology more pronounced? Would LNG trucks or LNG commercial vehicles make it more pronounced in a true sense? Would adaptability of connected vehicles technology be easy with these vehicles?
The other way around, as I said in the beginning earlier question, with electric vehicles, your ability to say optimize the operation of the vehicle becomes more amenable, or it opens a new avenues for improvement, right? So that way, EVs, in fact, with the electric vehicles, even that is possible even for the IC engine vehicles also. Like we can, to a very large extent, you can make the driving of the vehicle the way as it you would want it to be for the safety, as well as giving you optimum fuel efficiency. Now I tell you, of course this is not exactly connected to the connectivity, but from a digital point of view, the digitalization of the whole vehicle. Earlier we were able to give the monitor the driving habits and control those driving habits in let's say one dimension. But now with the digital and improved ECUs, you can control your monitoring or drivability of the vehicle to almost fourth level, from 1 to 4th level, which means the driver will still have the controls of driving the truck, but you can absolutely control his drivability. So you will not allow him to accelerate beyond a point if you want, through your monitoring. If you want him to keep the speed within a particular limit, you can control through these connected features. Even the engines have got now features, what we call as smart features. Of course, this is again related to emission plus fuel efficiency, that they will not inject more fuel unless it is demanded by the drivability of the better fuel efficiency. So means the fuel efficiency become the desired point, and your fuel delivery, your max speed or the speed or your acceleration will be governed by that, rather than governed by the pedal by the driver.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Jindal. Jehan, I'm going to come to you again. You heard what the experts said, the industry people said. I'm going to ask you. You spoke about. You said that you're looking forward to electric vehicles. You're looking forward to LNG vehicles that will drive your fuel costs down. That will help you with the TCO. The point is, would that make a better case for you to invest more into connected technologies?
So the answer is yes, of course. You see, the beauty of technology is that it brings in a lot of transparency, and the more clarity anybody has, so anything that can be measured can be improved. It's and the only one thing I follow this. One scientist had mentioned that everything is an opinion unless you see the data. So what do you call? That's the key. And predominantly, anything for any businessman, forget a trucker. What do you call is to be able to get as much data, as clean, as fast, as reliable as possible. Fundamentally, that's point number one. EV. So I am personally very closely associated with companies that are going into the EV space in trucking, where we're kind of retrofitting a whole old truck and putting a new complete unit with the battery, etc. The challenge, of course, is being the infrastructure around charging, etc. But at least for the short haul and the mid mile, that seems like a very high potential space to be in on payloads over 25 tons and above. And so for LNG, one of the big pushes which I see, which has a lot of potential, is for the long distance trucking. Yes. And so that's something that that's the solution kind of there, because there's a 40% difference in cost. Now both these LNG, of course, is another baby of going to be of diesel, so it's going to have its own engine related challenges. But electric is going to be a completely different ballgame, and I think the investment is not so much of a challenge for electric, because the ROI is more long term. But the fundamental challenge with electric and the adoption for electric is going to be the cost of the batteries at the moment and the charging infrastructure. So currently we're looking at something like 18,000 to 20,000 for a 1 kilowatt battery per kilowatt. And so essentially that cost needs to come down. Unfortunately, China is the monopoly when it comes to battery technologies. India has a lot to do. They're far, far behind. As far as China is concerned, I think Dr. Jindal mentioned about road accidents, and just for everybody's knowledge, we clocked in somewhere around 160,000, 70,000 deaths in 2018, whereas China did 63,000. So they are less than almost 1/3 of ours, even with a higher population. Number one. Number two is that 65% of the road deaths that happen on national highways, and predominantly due to truck collisions and commercial vehicle collisions. So this is a like literally a problem for the nation. We lose 3% of our GDP in this. Where we have come in with a solution for this, and am I permitted to talk about that? I don't know, Bhushan.
Yeah,
if you can give me that.
Good. We are running a little late.
Sure.
Yes.
So the solution that we've built is basically, we've realized that these 8 million trucks, putting a device is going to be an impossible challenge. So what we're doing is we're using the mobile phone of the truck driver as an IoT device of sorts, which essentially helps him become a better driver, safer, gets rewards for better driving practices. And through the CSR foundation route that we have a social venture hybrid business model where essentially the truck driver is incentivized to drive safely. And I think fundamentally, if we can do an asset-light version towards road safety, that's where the solution lies, and that's what we're working towards. And when I heard even Dr. Ramanathan was talking about a truck driver knowing that there is a traffic ahead or an accident ahead. So our platform, what we're building will be connected to all of the drivers across the country. And if an accident happens, then a previous truck owner behind could probably help him out. Or if there's a traffic, he can see that in real time. And that's something that my tech company is working towards. And hopefully, if this is in every truck in the country, I envision that we can save about 200 lives a day in road accidents. So that's kind of what we are working on. And if anybody of y'all is interested to collaborate on that from an OEM perspective, happy to share and talk about what we're doing as well.
Interesting, Jayant. I have some questions. The first question from the attendees. The first question that I have is from one gentleman called Mahesh. He's a research analyst, and his question is to Mr. Ramanathan. He is asking post ZF acquisition, what has been the status of connected technologies as far as CVs is concerned? So,
yeah. The ZF and WAPCO is a perfect match of complementary technologies. So we bring both complementary technologies to the OEMs and fleets. ZF is strong in basic aggregates like axles, the drive lines, transmission, suspension, and the ADAS sensors and all. In the case of WAPCO is very strong in control systems. So both put together we give as a system solution. Like for example, ZF manufactures own sensors like camera and the radar by itself. So we can bring cost-effective these solutions to Indian market. We are bringing these solutions in a cost-effective manner. With the connectivity solution, this can provide a whole system solution in a competitive cost manner.
True. So, Mr. Ramanathan, you are essentially hinting at climbing the automation levels slowly but firmly.
Yes.
Mr. Malar, I'm going to take the next question. There's one gentleman called Abhilash Jain, who has put up a question as to what is the scope of telematics connected technology in terms of business operations of a transporter?
I think it's immense. Like I mentioned earlier, Bhushan, I think connected trucks is going to be the center point for driving profitability of the transporter, in the sense that if you're able to maximize the uptime of the truck, which is what the connected truck solution, and if the uptime center delivers a good service. In fact, this is going to be the biggest differentiator for all OEMs, because what's happening the world across is that the technology is a great leveler now. There's no major difference between engine A and an engine B from an OEM and an engine from an OEM A or an OEM B. So it is these soft services of an uptime center and things like that which are going to be core. I think is what Jehan's mentioned. And I think it's a no-brainer that the more the time that the truck is on the road, the more profitable it is. And I would like to differ from a point of view is that the cost of the truck is only 20% of the overall, when you look at the TCO of the truck, the initial vehicle cost is only 20%. So the remaining thing is basically comes out of fuel and how much you run the truck. So I think connected trucks are going to play a huge role as far as delivering profitability to the transporters. Second is there are certain segments, Bhushan, which are critical, which require critical information. For instance, if you talk about this temperature control logistics trucks, I'm talking about the reefers and things like that. So their customers who are in the pharma industry or any other, let's say for transporting vaccines, you would need to come back to the OEM, which could be a pharma company, in terms of what is the temperature of that consignment at let's say 10 o'clock in the morning, 12 noon, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. So all this can potentially be done only if you have a connected trucks with those kind of sensors. True. So I would think it is very core, and I think this is what will differentiate. As I said, for one to be repeating myself, it is going to be differentiating a OEM A from an OEM B in terms of delivering better profitability to the customer.
True. Thank you, Mr. Malla. There's another question that I'm going to take to the last question rather, which I'm going to take to Dr. Jindal. There's an anonymous attendee. Probably he doesn't want to share his name, he or she. Is asking what is the CV industry doing to improve life of drivers and helpers?
Yeah.
I would rather take it to you first and then to Jehan. So
yeah. You see, I think though maybe it was a little bit oblique reference to this. One is that, we all know that the way the trucks were being made earlier, though it is still there, but we have tried to change that paradigm by making a fully built vehicle by OEMs with the cabins which are fully say tested for safety. Like I mentioned about ECR, I'm telling EC regulation, but there's a parallel Indian regulation also, with which you have got a both frontal collision, top this thing, rear collision. So there is a, so that when you are driver inside the vehicle, they will be safe. That is number one. So the second is, if you just go and get into a new vehicle, the seats which, in fact, I'm speaking from a Automotive perspective, but I think the same is true for all others, OEMs also. We have done very systematically a lot of changes in the way we incorporate seats in the cabins. We have got now almost standard suspended seats in almost all HCVs and MCVs, and the all other features of the seats have been done. Seat belt, I mentioned about ELR getting incorporated as a standard feature, which will encourage people to to wear the seat belt for the purpose of safety. Even you see, at one point of time, the co-driver, that means your cleaner or service guy who goes with the driver, those seats used to be like just a plain bhatta. So now there are proper seats are there with proper cushion and backrest. So those are the things which are there. In fact, and of course, not to talk about, I think again, maybe pushed by the norms, whether it is tippers, whether it is the highway vehicles. Now there is a ventilation is there. Now 100% of the vehicles, current generation vehicles, are coming with a blower, so that you can have a good ventilation in the truck, so that in the hot summer you have got a good ventilation going around. Uh, Given the option, the all vehicles are designed to have a air conditioning system possible. So if the customer wants, you can give air conditioned cabin also. So the air conditioning is another feature which is now, and also it doesn't come with very high cost. Though gone are the days when the air conditioning used to be very expensive. Now nobody talks about a car without an air conditioner. I'm sure the trucks will also become like that in not very distant future. So they will all be standard with all air conditioning. Then of course I think the improvement of the service intervals, improving the durability and reliability also goes, I think, in a way to improve the life of the drivers and the associates who go along with them for keeping a watch on the vehicle. There's very little that probably they are supposed to do nowadays than in the olden days what used to be there. So I would say that today's vehicles are, I'd say, relatively you can say yes, more can be done by providing all these collision mitigation and other things which we mentioned. But they are much better vehicles for a driver to drive than maybe it was 10 years back or so. So that is for sure.
Thank you, Dr. Jindal. Jihan, you're part of the answer. And I want to add one more thing, Jihan. There is another question that has just come in. It's about LNG. It's an anonymous attendee. He's asking how would LNG benefit you as a transporter if you were to opt for it? Since I think you somewhere touched on it.
Sure. So your first question was, what role can OEMs play in road safety?
To be specific, it was about what CV industry is doing to improve life of drivers and helpers. Your perspective of it, since you are running them and you are trying to ensure safety of your own drivers and helpers.
So, look, the CV industry has no interest in what you call in general, and I'm going to be very brutally honest because that's how I am. The customer is the transporter, is not the truck driver. And the transporter follows what the truck driver wants, but ultimately he'll see his bottom line cost. How much am I saving? X, Y, Z. And in India, unfortunately, the life of a cow is more valuable than the human life. So typically here, when we talk about this concept, unfortunately, everything has to be a policy. Then only OEMs will do, then only transporters will follow, then drivers will follow FASTag. If you don't have a AC compulsory, no OEM will put it because no customer wants it. It's not their fault. I mean, it's very much available. I myself had the option of doing it. I didn't do it. Because when I would ask my drivers, I'm putting AC, will you use? No, sir, we will not use. Give us the money. We would rather take the money than use AC. I think operationally, we are so behind, practically speaking, when it comes to road safety. So we are horrible. We are absolutely it's depressing when you talk about it. I think fundamentally, one is that apart from the thing that is needed, which is you should have safe cabins, you should have seat belts, you should have airbags. Nobody does it unless and until it is made compulsory, AIS, blower, falan. And why? Because you save that 5 rupees, 5,000, 20,000, 1 lakh, whatever. It's sad, but it's true. And I don't blame the OEMs, nor do I or the CV manufacturers. I blame the people. Because there is no value for life, hence there's no value for the trucker, there's no value for the driver. Eventually, it will come down to cost, and the sales team of every OEM will say, "Boss, how can you come out lower? Because X company is going lower, and we need more market share." And so, see, it's very good to talk about it, and I have seen a lot of leaders of companies talk about this. But when you actually go and say, "Okay, this is a solution. I have a solution for you guys. This is what it's going to do. This is how it's going to change lives. Let's do it." Everybody is like, no, I'm too busy right now. You see, I've got to make now from BS4 to BS6. I've got that to do, boss. Why are you bothered with road safety right now? So, and next thing will be, abhi electric karna hai, so we wo chhod do. This is not a priority. And it's fine because that's not their business. It shouldn't be their business. Their business is not to look after drivers. Their business is to make sure that the trucks are well built, XYZ, whatever, and sell maximum trucks and run the country the way it has to move. I think it's probably 30% of where it should be. It should be way better. We are nowhere there. Forget global standards, maybe technology we will have, but either SIM card, half the time there's no network only. So what will you do with the technology? Half the time, if things don't work, infrastructure is broken. We aren't there yet. If what we are saying now, and I see most of the panelists, everybody is talking about, yes, this will be the future. I see this happening 3-5 years ahead of time. Definitely. Not in the near term, for sure. Insurance as well. Shyam Miller was talking around how that will be a piece of the insurance premiums coming down. And that is going to happen, but not in the near term. It's going to be taking a lot of data, a lot of analytics, a lot of time for that to actually come into place from a policy point of view, from all these structural points of view. So I'm really sorry if I've upset anyone, and I'm truly apologizing. But the CVs are nowhere even close to doing anything unless and until they're forced to do it. And of course, Mr. Gadkari will force and will keep forcing, and then people will keep pushing. So you see that thing happening, but it's not going to. It's barely changing the numbers. We were at 1,70,000 in 2019. We were at 1,50,000, and we're killing lakhs of people every day. Thousands of people are dying, and this is just considered as a hota hai, kya karenge? And unless and until somebody close to us dies in a road accident, nobody is bothered. And so it's a very sad state of affairs as far as road safety is concerned. And I'm truly passionate about this topic, and I have nothing to do with the other points that we were talking, just purely talking about road safety. As far as LNG, to answer that question quickly, there is an approximate cost saving in terms of the price of LNG versus diesel is close to about 40%. And so any transporter worth his salt and the kit cost is somewhere around 12 lakhs. To convert to an LNG vehicle makes sense simply because if you either do mono or dual, if you do dual, it's easier to adopt because then you can have one-way diesel or whatever if there's not enough LNG pumps. The challenge that I'm facing, and we're trying to move into LNG as well for long haul, is to make sure that we can do it in mono. And again, which requires fueling stations, Nagpur being one of them, which is the recent one that's opened. But for sure, I can assure you that in long haul trucking, that's going to be big. Today, 5%, there was a difference in 10% when people moved to biofuel. Half of Gujarat is running on biofuel right now. And predominantly just because there's a 10% difference in cost. Imagine what happens when 40% difference in cost comes in. Everybody's adoption will be like this. So that's just my insight. And I again apologize. I feel I've been very rude and brutal, but that's my opinion.
Thank you, Jehan. I would like to thank all the panelists for taking time out and being a part of this. It was very interesting. I believe the attendees would be the right people to tell us on that. And they would be taking away a lot of insights, a lot of information. Thank you so much for being here. Dr. Jindal, Mr. Mala, Jehan, Mr. Ramanathan, thank you so much again. And have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhushan.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Shyam. Thank you, Ramanathan.
Bye. Yeah.
Thank you.
See
Thank you, sir.
all.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jindal.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Thank you.